Hi everyone, welcome back to Broomy's Garage. Thanks for joining us today. It's all about fire suppression system and another in the series of how I did it with our RX-7 race car. So thanks for joining me today. As I was saying in the intro, today is all about the fire suppression system installation on our RX-7 here. However, you can see here I've got a fire extinguisher in my hand. Most of you are probably familiar with this. This is not what I'm talking about when I talk about fire suppression systems. So I'm actually going to run one of these in my car as well. It's going to sit just in front of the driver's seat, and it's going to be here just in case if I need to put out maybe a tiny fire in my car and I don't want to pull the fire suppression system lever, and we'll get into what that all is soon. Or if there's a competitor's car I see it's on fire, I can pull over and maybe help them out with this as well. But in terms of fire suppression, what I mean, well, essentially, as you can see here, the bottle, 10-pound bottle that's installed in the car is connected to a lever, and there's nozzles that will be installed in the car, which means in the event that I see fire or flames or feel something that feels like, I can feel the flames, I can easily basically pull the lever, or in this case push the lever, and the fire suppression system will automatically be released at 3 places around the car. Now what that enables me then to do is pull over quickly and safely and get out of the car and hopefully save the car from being burnt to an absolute crisp and burnt to the ground. And then hopefully with the suppression system suppressing the fire, gives enough time for the fire marshals to come out on track and deal with whatever else may be left over in that. So with all that, let's have a bit of a closer look at this. So what I've actually got here is the Andra drag racing rulebook, official rulebook there, and this is the current one, 2021 to 2022. So it will cover the remainder of this year and all of next year basically, unless there's some last minute amendments. But this book, if you're building a drag racing car that's going to be purpose built for drag racing, and you need to build a roll cage and a few other things, it's not just a standard street car or something. Before you start building the drag car, this is what you need to have in your possession essentially, because it will tell you the ins and outs of what you can and can't do. And essentially, if it's not in here, it doesn't mean it's legal. All right, it just means maybe there's not a rule around it, or it's deemed that you should know that it's not legal. So one of the things here is that there will always be an ET or a mile an hour cutoff for what you can and can't do in terms of these things. So talking about today, we're talking about the onboard fire suppression system. You'll see here, it says, we'll bring this up a bit closer, see if you can read it. But it says just here, any enclosed vehicle quicker than 8 seconds has to have a fire suppression system of a minimum of 5 pounds. So our fire suppression system is a 10-pound system. Some people run a 15-pound, or you can run 2 bottles, which is, could be 20-pound or 30-pound. It also is a fully serviceable system. So every 2 years, the system has to be tested and redated. So it's up to code basically every 2 years, because like with other fire extinguishers, it can go off or whatever, or it could set or whatever. So, you don't want just to buy it and then put it there and go, oh, I've ticked that box and that. If you don't keep it up to date, the one time you might need to use it, it might not work properly, and then it's completely useless. So essentially, this rule book also clearly maps out some other governmental rules and regulations around stuff for ozone or whatever and that, but it clearly recommends here and specifies exactly how the bottle has to be installed. So this, you can see here, the siphon tube inside the bottle. This one here, you can see there, it says best way is for it to be flat and sideways. I don't really have the room to do that in this car, so I've done this method where it says OK, completely vertically up. You'll see here it says never and never, and that is because how the liquid sits in the siphon tube. So I am doing this method, and we'll run over the installation of all that very shortly. So there are a few methods of fire suppression systems out there. I think there's powder ones, like a chemically powder ones, but I didn't go for that one because it has been known to be quite an irritant. And also, if you ever do pull it, it is really, really, really hard to get out of your car and your race suit and stuff. It's really thick and it's like chalk almost, and it'll give you a really bad time when you're trying to get it out there. No doubt they work, but it can be really bad. It can also be pretty bad for your lungs if you inhale a fair bit of it in that too. So I didn't want to go for that one. I wanted something to protect myself in the car, but I didn't want to, in the off chance I had to pull it, that you know, it could do, you know, some damage also to myself. So other ones are sort of like, you know, you can get carbon dioxide based ones, but again, I didn't want, you know, a cabin filling up with carbon dioxide and starving the fire, but also starving myself of oxygen, you know. So if you're going 150 mile an hour and you have a fire, it's going to take some time to work out what's going on, pull a lever and then decelerate. You know, it's a pretty small cabin in this car. It's fairly sealed too. So, you know, I don't want a fire system taking away the oxygen that I've got to breathe to make good decisions and fast decisions in there too. So the system I went for was recommended to me by Marcos at the race shop. So this is a cold fire suppression system from DJ Safety. I think it's plant-based, and it's like a foaming sort of one. So you pull it, and yeah, if you need to do clean up afterwards, you can just wash it all out, and it just cleans away everything really easily. So if you want to know more about the specifics of that kit, I definitely recommend contacting Marcos, and he can run over all the ins and outs of it now. So yeah, without further ado, let's have a bit of a look. I've already installed a couple of components here, but let's have a little bit of a look at what's required here to set the system up. So our line has been run temporarily for second time. Our nozzle is, ooh, can't see just there. And job now is just to essentially join it up in here. So as we were discussing, this is a big loop system. So over here, you'll see one end. This goes down here, all the way over to the other end of that nozzle over there. This end joins up to here. You can see our little hook runs all the way, and you can see it's not completely straight yet, but it'll run all the way to that side of the bottle, and then the other side of the bottle runs out to that nozzle, which means it needs to come out either here or here and run to here. And then essentially what it'll mean, both sides of the bottle will release the cold fire system stuff, and it will go all the way around yeah, to the 3 points of the car, and then put some equal pressure and some decent force of that there. So all right, let's we'll try and measure how much of that tube I got left, and we'll pick out a good position of where to drill and get going. So you can see my bottle's already installed there. You'll see right there is a billet bracket that they supply. There's also this part here, which is the valve essentially. There's also a pressure gauge on there, which will show bottle pressure and whatnot. And then you'll see the release cable there, and what that does is the release cable is actually a push button, and that will puncture a diaphragm essentially in the top of the bottle, which then releases the fire system. And as you can see, it's got twin outlets, and let's run over how that sort of works now. So Marcos supplied the system as a complete kit, and that kit comes with the cable, the bottle top, the bottle, the billet bracket, enough of the aluminium tubing to do the car, as well as 3 nozzles. So that's most of the kits are all 3 nozzle kits. What you do with that is you put 2 nozzles in the engine bay and you put 1 nozzle in the car. Now, the nozzle in the car isn't designed to shoot all of your body, essentially. It's designed just for your feet, because you think about where the fire is going to come from. Generally in a race car, it's going to come from the engine bay. So the first place the fire is going to come through will essentially be the firewall, and your hands and your face and that are going to be a fair bit further away from the fire. So what you want is that nozzle pointing at your feet, so if there is flame or fire coming through near where the firewall is, you've got more time to actuate the pedals, like the brake pedals, without them being burnt. especially on top of your fire gear that you'll have. And then, yeah, the two nozzles that are in the engine bay are going to hopefully suppress the fire that's actually active in that too, which will give you enough time to brake, slow down, and then get out of the car safely. So let's have a bit of a look at some of the stuff I've already installed in the engine bay and how it works. All right, so this is a fairly busy engine bay. As you can see, there's a heap going on here, but let me just sort of take a step back and explain what this is. This is a 2-rotor 13B turbo engine, massive turbo, got exhaust on this side. That's what a rotary engine, how it is. The inlet's also on this side. This is a methanol powered car, so I have a large methanol fuel tank here. I have a mechanical fuel pump off the side of the engine just here, and this all feeds fuel injectors, which you can't see here, that are normally there. All the fuel system runs back to a fuel pressure regulator and then back to the tank. So essentially the most critical areas in this engine bay in terms of that we have to be careful with fire, if everyone know that if they've got an EFI car, the number one area where most of the fires will start from will be your fuel injectors and O-ring perishes or whatever, and it'll pop an O-ring and then fuel can spray out everywhere. That fine atomized spray, especially with a rotary, is really dangerous because you've got red hot up to 800 whatever degree exhaust right here, methanol, and that's easily combustible. Bang, you've got a fire. So that then you take into account also, I've basically got a bomb sitting here of close to 20 litres of methanol. A lot of people run a lot less in terms of capacity of fuel. I have to run 20 litres because I sort of have to drive back to the pits without a tow car and that. So the decision I've made on how I install all of this is based on that. So you can see I've got one of the nozzles here, and that's what the nozzle is. And that's firing directly to where the injectors are. And my other nozzle is right here. And that nozzle is firing to the mechanical pump and also the side of the fuel cell. So if it was like a 4-nozzle system, I'd probably have another one facing up this way towards, I've got up here fuel pressure regulator and the nitrous fuel solenoids. I would probably have it up, another one up there, but it's a 3-nozzle system, so you've got to essentially, you get 2 in the engine bay. You've got to point it to the greater of the dangers, and anticipate those 2 are the ones where we want it. So this is also a looped system in that it is one big chain. So off the bottle you saw before, it had 2 outlets. So essentially what happens is one outlet runs out to here. It then runs out to there, and it'll go all the way, as you can see, it makes its way over here to there. So now these 2 nozzles are now connected. What will happen then off the other side of those 2 nozzles is that from this one here, where the methanol tank is, that will run back to one side of the bottle in the back, and the other side of the bottle will run first off to the driver compartment nozzle, and then off the driver compartment nozzle will then join up to here. So even though there's 2 outlets out of the bottle, it's all one big joined looped system. So with all that sort of out of the way of explaining what the system is and that, let's have a little bit of a look at what tools you sort of need to install it, and yeah, exactly how you go about installing it. So installing the system's fairly basic. All you need is some basic sort of tools. So the drill and the drill bit, that's just there to drill a hole in the firewall for the grommet that you'll need. You'll obviously have your aluminium tube that's supplied, and then you'll need a couple of the tube nut and sleeves, which are also supplied in the kit. This is a tube cutter to make a nice clean non-mess cut. Here's a basic sort of tube bender, and you get these from any hardware or plumbing stores, and that's just to make some nice bends if you want them. Otherwise, you can bend this stuff by hand. It is super, super easy. Tape measure and a texter just to mark how long essentially you need to cut this tube. And this is a tube bender. Now, I'll go into some detail about how to use this specific one because it's not really meant for this kind of stuff, but I'll show you how I sort of get away with using this. And then it's just an AN wrench. All right, so first things first, I've got my nozzle. I have to work out where I want to place that nozzle. Now my feet are obviously going to be here, so I want the nozzle to be somewhere up here, so I can spray down at my feet. So as we discussed before, we want it spraying in this area. We don't want to spray it in our faces and that's, you know, we want our arms, you know, arms are probably going to be the last thing to catch fire, and that the fire's coming through the firewall. We need to protect this area first. So I'm going to put that nozzle up there. So from that, you can get a tape measure and just simply measure back towards the bottle, and I give myself about, you know, a decent 50 ml or whatever excess. Right, so with that measurement, it came out at about, I measured a straight bit and a bit up towards the bottle, and that was 950 plus 600. So instead of 950, let's call it 1,000 and 600. So what I'm going to do now is measure off 1,600 of this, and all I want to do is just, this is very easy to work with. This is aluminium or aluminum, depending on where your postcode is, where your car is. But if we just stretch this out, I'm going to get this, and we'll measure our 1,600, which comes out to about here. Now, I say about because, again, as long as it's a little bit longer, it doesn't really matter. However, you have to keep in mind that this isn't an infinite coil, so you may run out, and just looking at this here, I may actually have to get some more. I may have run short on this. So next part is I'm going to cut the tube with this. So what this does is tube goes in here. This is a cutting wheel. These are pivots basically, and you just open and close it depending on where you want to be. So right, so I'm just going to put this in here. Get some light pressure on it. All right, it's not moving. See, that's where the line is, and now it's just a case of clamping down a bit so it has an initial bite, and then you just rotate this. So ask any plumber if they've used these before, and they'll tell you exactly how to do it. So again, over, and each 360 degree, you could just turn it in a bit, but it's very thin wall stuff and it won't take long, and what you're left with is a no debris, very clean cut. So if you cut this with an angle grinder or something, you would get debris through all this, which we don't want. So that's now cut, and I've got a big straight long piece, and now I might want to straighten this a little bit, although it doesn't really matter. It's not super critical. It's more aesthetics than anything. But what I want to do is put this in the car and exactly bend it to shape to make sure I've got the right length that I want, and then flare one end, put it probably get it on the bottle side, then bend it to the exact shape I want, then cut off any excess that I don't need, and then make the other flare and get into it. All right, so let's chuck this in the car and see how close we are. Alrighty, this is probably one of the harder parts of the job, is just getting these lines where you want them to go exactly. Trying to work out some of the stuff here. So let's see, might pass this through here or not. You want it to be out of the way of as much stuff as possible. So I'll pass this through here, I think, and over to the nozzle. Should be about there, which means this then will have to come up. I want it to be about there. So that looks pretty okay on both accounts, I think. Pretty happy with where that sits, so might pull that out now and just let's do some flaring. All right, so now it's time to flare. Now all I have is I think it's called a plumber's flaring tool. I think it flares around about 45 degree. However, AN, I'll show you what this is. That is an AN fitting right there. That is a 37 degree taper. So you've also got this sleeve which goes in the tube nut under the tube, which assists there like that. So this is where I say buyer beware on this advice. I'm going to use this 45 degree flare tool because I've used it quite a lot, and I'm quite confident in using it to be able to do the job that I need to do, and that is I'm going to put, because this is how it's done, basically I'm going to have the tube nut, which is that. That tube nut is going to go here. This little tiny thing is going to go here. And then I'm going to flare this piece right here. And yeah, when I flare it, I'm not going to flare it all the way, so to speak. I'm not going to drive it down all the way to that 45 degree out. I'm probably going to drive to maybe to only about, say, 30 degree. Because this is aluminium, it is super, super soft, very malleable. So that means if I flare this down to, say, 30 degrees, when I get this end and I tighten them down, because aluminium is so malleable, it will basically conform to that 37 degree taper that is on this piece here, and also on here. It will conform to that shape. So I have done this plenty of times before. However, if you take this advice, do so at your own risk. So yeah, let's do this now, and yeah, let's get this piece in the car, and then hopefully what we've got left over here is enough. Now, I bought this kit from, as I said at the start, I bought this kit from the race shop, and Marcos knows that you need actually a fair bit of this to get the job done. So yeah, maybe measure first to see exactly how much you need, but his kit specifically from the race shop comes with a fair more line, which I can definitely see is needed. So just keep that in mind when you're shopping around for this thing. All right, let's do some flaring. Right, so you can see there's the start of the cone. So what we'll do now is we'll drive a fitting into this and make it conform to the shape. All right, so this is what we're left with now after that, and you can see just how perfect that has conformed to this. So if I get this now, you'll see it fits in there and it sits right snug over that 37 degree taper. So this just comes up. This screws on, and job done. All right, so all we have to do now is rinse and repeat over here. Now, the most important part of this, and you've probably seen memes about it too, is we've got one end done. That means before you flare this, whatever you do, make sure that goes on, followed by this. Otherwise, you'll have to cut it off and re-flare it, because this will be a totally sealed tube from now on. All right, number 2 up, we'll get it done, and then we'll get this in the car and take a look at it. So once you've got the line in, you can see here it's still just dummy fitted, and it's not dressed up or painted. I'll probably paint this black because, you know, it's, I could probably leave it silver in the engine bay, but the line's inside the car, as we see here, and it stands out a fair bit, you know, so I'll probably paint that black or grey in there. But one last thing is, obviously, you can see here how I've mounted it. There's just this is a rubber P-clip. That's in there pretty good, because there's one here and one here. The thing you want to know is, you can see this one's a bit wobbly because I've only got, I don't know if I've even got a P-clip on that side, but essentially you want to mount it with these type of clips or something like this at fairly regular intervals, because especially with the aluminium, thin tube aluminium will work hard and really easily, which means it'll fracture and crack really easy. So you might not notice, and you know, if this is allowed to vibrate around, this little joint right here will crack really, really easily, which means when it's time for action, you've got the however many PSIs in the bottle will come out, it'll blow that nozzle off and nothing will work properly, which you don't want. So just make sure that you're fastening these at regular intervals to make sure that they can't move at all. All right, now as the cable dangles in the air, this bottle is empty. I need a pro to fill it and give me the SFI little sticker and label and stuff. So it's off to Marcos at the race shop where I bought this kit from, and now he's going to fill this bottle up, pressurize it, and it'll be ready for final installation. Right, I've got my fire system bottle here, it needs to be filled up, and I am at no other than the race shop, all new premises here, so let's go in and see Marcos and have a look around.
6% for fuel oil fires, diesel oil fires, gasoline fires, and some chemical fires. So we even go above that. So we go 7.5 to 10%. Like I can go up to 10%, but I do 7.5. So we run a rich mixture. Special assembly tool.
That's custom right there.
This is regulated to about 400 psi, which is what that bottle will take.
It's about how much boost I'm going to run the RX-7 too. It's
I'll slowly go, like it's rated at 360, it's sweet spot, but I'll go above it a little because it does settle. SFI number. And we'll date and tag this sticker accordingly.
All right, so one last thing to do here, and that's to actually test the system. So let's see it in action now. Yeah, we're not going to do that because I don't want this mess everywhere. Unfortunately, testing the fire system is going to lead to the cold fire stuff going everywhere, and hopefully, fingers crossed, I never actually have to see the inside contents of that bottle. But that'll about do it for this episode of how I did it and how I built specific things on this RX-7 race car. As always, if you want to see the detail of this being built as the whole project series, head over to fullBOOST now. Links in the description. You can see every little bit of this and see our future racing endeavors with the car. But yeah, for today's episode, that is all. Thanks for joining us, and I'll see you next time.